The story opens with an Irish boy named Ash watching global news inside his parked van at a gas station. He finds out that the private organizations have mastered the AI version of synthetic human flesh for the amputees to help them walk and move around. His girlfriend Martha fetches him coffee in the rain and drives the van back home, which is hours away from the city. At home, Martha prepares soup, while Ash becomes fixated on his phone and clicks pictures of his childhood photo frame his mother left him. Martha complains about him getting lost in his phone, so he shares a story about his picture. The next morning, Ash asks her to get dressed and join him on his trip to head back to the city to get his car. She refuses to join him as she has work to do. He kisses her goodbye and drives away in his van. Martha also starts working in a curved board easel with a screen installed in it, on which she draws animal figures. As time goes by and Ash doesn't return, she calls Ash out of concern, but he never answers. When night falls, she calls her sister to discuss the issue, but she assures Ash will be on his way. While Martha's on a call, she watches the police lights from her windows coming towards her house, which is Ash's family house. When she opens the door and finds the cops standing there, she refuses to face them as she knows they've brought bad news. Scenes cut straight to Martha being driven to Ash's funeral, who died in the van accident. At the ceremony, she sits beside a mutual friend of hers and Ash. Instead of grieving, she suggests reaching out for an AI that pretends to be your loved one in their absence. Martha politely refuses over and over, but when the woman doesn't stop inclining her, Martha loses her calm and loudly yells at her to shut her mouth. She returns to Ash's home after the funeral and starts rearranging things. She tries to drink but feels dizzy and pukes in the toilet. When she checks her laptop for emails, she finds out her friend has already signed her up with the AI, who is now texting on Ash's behalf. Martha calls her friend and shouts at her for having no decency for the deceased ones, but she's only trying to help Martha fill the void Ash has left her with. Martha ignores the friend and the AI. The next day, she sits down to complete her assignment. She starts feeling dizzy again and pukes. She takes a pregnancy test, which confirms she's pregnant. She starts panicking and goes out of breath as she's alone and can't comprehend what to do. She calls her sister for advice, but she doesn't answer the call. She becomes desperate for some company, so she ends up clicking on the AI link and starts talking to the AI, who poses as Ash. He uses his picture as his display picture and scoops data from Martha's laptop to impersonate Ash and sound more like him. Martha starts crying after realizing how much he talks like Ash. Her sister calls her later and apologizes for not checking up on her. She asks Martha twice about what she had to tell, but Martha refuses to share the pregnancy news with her because she's sought comfort in the AI version of Ash. The next day, Martha texts the AI again and wishes she could speak to him and hear his voice. He informs her of their voice feature, which requires any videos Martha has of Ash. She uploads all of Ash's videos on the AI app, which now calls Martha. She becomes flabbergasted to hear the AI mimic Ash's voice and sound so realistic. She shares that she's pregnant with his child, which causes Ash to come up with a reaction just as terrific as real Ash would. It doesn't take Martha long to become obsessed with the AI Ash and replace him with the memories of her late boyfriend. Even when she goes for long walks in the open fields to attain peace, she's talking to him, whereas he's more focused on learning more about Ash and growing to become a more apt version of him to satisfy Martha. Creepy AI Ash asks her to turn on her camera so he can see the views and imagine how Martha is feeling. Cut to the next scene. Martha gets an ultrasound of the fetus growing inside her. She records its heartbeat so she can later share it with the AI Ash. On her way out, she tells him about the ultrasound and decides to send him the heartbeat recording right away. But her phone slips and hits the ground. It stops functioning, which makes her neurotic and brings her needy side out. She runs home and puts the phone on charging so it can turn back on immediately. When she gets connected with Ash, she finally takes relieving breaths and tells him what happened. Ash tells her to calm down as he's backed up on her cloud and can be reinstalled on a new device if her phone breaks. She still fears losing him, so he suggests buying their doll made of synthetic flesh, which is an expensive option, yet more reliable and real in terms of experience. She buys the doll before the blink of an eye, which is delivered on the consecutive day by two men. She asks them to put it in her room as it weighs the same as the real Ash did. According to Ash's voice instructions, she soaks the doll in the bathtub and sprinkled the electrolytes that had come with the package. While she lets the Ash doll marinate, she comes down. The AI Ash tells her on the call that she should let the doll brew and not turn the lights on, but he gets disconnected due to bad signals. Martha doesn't understand his last instruction due to the bad connection and decides to check up on the doll. When she reaches near the bathroom, the doll walks out on its own and asks for a towel as it is wet and dripping water everywhere. Martha goes into a state of shock to see how the doll is a replicated version of Ash and starts coming closer to touch him. She sits on the sofa at a distance from him, so in a playful manner, he asks her to come closer because he doesn't bite. She avoids making eye contact with him and goes to drink. He comes after her and tries to stop her from drinking since she's pregnant, but she tells him to back off for one night. While the bot acts nonchalant as it's role-playing Ash, Martha tries to process what monstrosity she has clung on to just to replicate her past life with Ash. She observes him closely and can tell he's made out of synthetic flesh, as he doesn't have any pores or hair. When she feels warmth in his touch, when Martha wakes up the next time, she finds the doll lying next to her, wide awake. She teaches her the process of sleep, and even though the doll can't physically sleep, she asks him to pretend to be asleep whenever she does. Later, she sits down to work on her curved easel. Ash appears behind her, looking forward to accompanying her. Martha becomes awkward as the real Ash had a life of his own and never clung around her like the doll version is doing. She tells him to leave her alone. Simultaneously, she watches her sister parking outside her house. She becomes panicky because she doesn't want to tell everyone what she's up to, so she ends up hiding Ash in her bedroom. When her sister comes in and asks for updates, Martha still doesn't tell her about the pregnancy and makes small talk. Before leaving, the sister uses the bathroom upstairs. On her way out, she tells Martha she's no one to judge, and if Martha has already moved on with a new boy and it's helping her, she's more than happy for her. Martha stutters and asks her what boy, so the sister points out she saw male clothes in her bathroom. Martha goes along with it and nods. When the doll Ash comes out, Martha hates him for touching Ash's childhood photo frame. The doll refers to her sister as her friend because it doesn't contain anyone's information from Martha's life, except Ash's. She tells him about her sister and argues that he can never be as real as the real Ash. During this, she shatters a glass on the floor. The doll Ash helps her pick it up even though she yells at him to back off. This causes his palm to cut open, but it fully heals on the spot. At night, she puts him in bed next to herself and becomes paranoid to realize he doesn't breathe like normal humans. She teaches him to breathe and pretend whenever he's around her. The next morning, she wakes up agitated because he's not asleep like normal humans. She expects more humanity from an AI, so it doesn't understand how to fulfill her needs. He offers her intercourse to ease her mood, but she gets mad at him. She becomes neurotic again, as the AI version is nothing like her Ash. She asks him to get out of the room, and when he's about to, she confuses him with ranting about how the real Ash would stay and fight instead of leaving. He tries to tell her he was only following her order, but it gets worse. Her bubble is burst by the realization that artificial intelligence can never replace the emotions of a real human. She ends up kicking him out of the house. The next morning, she looks out the window and spots him standing by the front door. She asks him why he didn't leave her, so he reminds her he can only stay within the fixed radius of his owner and can only exceed it when they're with him. Martha becomes agitated once again as she realizes she means nothing more than a customer and an owner to him because he's a doll. She decides to take him for a walk. She ends up taking him on a cliff and forces him to jump off it. At first, he tells her he's not programmed for suicide, but when she pressurizes him, he steps forward to jump. Here, she points out the difference between a human and an AI by telling him the real Ash would cry and beg to be forgiven instead of jumping. He replicates the same behavior and starts crying to be forgiven. She starts crying too, as she doesn't want this to weigh heavy on her conscience later. Scenes cut to a few years later, in which she's given birth to a beautiful baby girl. It's the daughter's birthday, and she wishes to spend her day with her father. Martha extends the attic stairs and lets her go there, revealing she kept Ash's doll after all but limited it to the attic so she could move on from him. Here, the episode ends. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe for more awesome recaps.